Well, welcome back for another video here in Getting Down to Business, and today I'm joined by Tom Haigh from Groundswell Property. He looks a bit better than me, so don't hold that against me, but we're talking a bit today about particularly property that I think, as an Australian is our right, we think we know a fair bit about, but when we start to deal with people that play in this space all the time, there's a lot we can take out of it, especially from a business owner's point of view. So I'll let Tom give a bit of an intro about himself and what he does.
Thanks, Beats. Well, look, really simply, I run a property advisory business based out of Newcastle. We work with investors and property owners who effectively are looking to generate wealth through property. So we work with them to deliver independent advice and guidance to help them make smart decisions that are really going to contribute to that long-term wealth creation plan. We, deal with clients from all walks of life with all sorts of different objectives, but the consistent outcome we're looking for anyone who's dealing with property and looking to have that factor into their wealth creation plan is how do they make smart decisions today that are going to deliver results long term that are disproportionate of the effort they've got to put in. So smart property plays versus going off gut instinct, as you mentioned, Beat. The free advice from somebody at a weekend barbecue.
Yeah, sure. So you're not really. I think it's important to clarify. Not a real estate agent. No, more in that advisory process to help people make better decisions.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a theme of the videos we've had to date. A constant thing's being get advice where we haven't got a vested interest.
Sure.
So that's good. Tell me how you work with business owners generally.
Yeah, look, I guess it's an interesting question. We work with business owners at a variety of different levels based on their level of interest in getting involved in property, as in coming up with a strategy, implementing that strategy and seeing it through. So what we do tend to find is that some business owners are really focused on what they're doing day to day, and that's fantastic. They're good at what they're doing. They want somebody that can come in and effectively tackle a project on their behalf. So that sort of
Have you got an example of one?
Yeah, absolutely. So even from the point of view of, say, new site acquisition, so somebody that's looking to expand, who's got some really specific objectives around what that location looks like, what the sort of key infrastructure requirements look like. So we'll go out and we'll acquire property on their behalf. So we'll run the due diligence, we'll make sure that the numbers work, we'll run the feasibilities, and we'll bring that back to obviously meeting their key objectives, their key acquisition requirements. So in many respects that's the done for you model, for want of a better word. And then in other scenarios we've got those owners who they may well have an existing asset, they're looking to do something with it, they're looking to realise some value, and we work with them as a bit of a sounding board sort of through some coaching.
Yeah.
So we're there just to provide the guidance, to keep them on track and to make sure that they remain focused on the right things, because there's a lot of different nuts and bolts that can fall in along the way that can distract you from what it is you're really trying to get to.
Yeah, sure. And I think you've said to me before that some of these instances are not always resulting in achieving the acquisition or the objective, but sometimes it's actually preventing people from buying the wrong asset as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I think being something that's so dear to most of the population in Australia, we've got a real love affair with property, and that unfortunately can cloud your judgment, as you know, with dealing with business owners on a day-to-day basis. If you're thinking from the heart with this stuff, there's a lot that can go wrong.
Yeah, sure.
So it's really about knowing the market, knowing your numbers, knowing what it is that you can do with what you've got, and making smart decisions around that.
So I know for a long time, especially in the bigger end of town, there's been probably a trend with regard to companies not owning property, actually divesting property and looking for rent, and then there's an opportunity for investors. What are you seeing with regard to whether it be SMEs, whether it be small business, whether it be larger businesses? What's some of those trends you're seeing with owning property, and why is it good or bad?
Look, great question. I guess it really depends on the circumstance, and what I guess we're finding with some of those business owners who have maintained the same location for a number of decades, we're finding that those I guess property owners and business owners who are now benefiting from things like gentrification. So those older industrial
What's
areas.
gentrification, mate?
Sorry, mate. So I
Not
guess
that I don't know.
the changing nature of a location based on new people moving in, a change in the actual use of the land itself. So in instances, land zoning changes that are meaning that older industrial corridors are now being converted into residential corridors. And to use a local example in Newcastle, Wickham would be a perfect example of that. So particularly situations where we've got older rundown properties that are then being subject to new investment, fresh life, new energy, people coming in, younger families that are actually investing in these locations, alongside that situation of the use change. So obviously the industrial converting to resi, Wickham again, you're seeing older tilt-up, concrete sheds that are now being converted into boutique apartment blocks, hipster cafes and delis that'll charge you $25 for a chorizo sausage. So that's I guess one of the main things that we're seeing, particularly for those business owners in that category of having held property for a number of decades.
So there's opportunity and
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So here's one bit of a guidance, I guess. What should or shouldn't people and specifically business owners be looking for when they're going to make an acquisition or they're looking to achieve a project, and at what stage should someone like yourself be brought in?
I guess what we see most of all, Beats, that people are doing wrong is just following the right process. So bringing the wrong steps in or investing in the wrong steps at the wrong time. Like one of the major ones we see, use an example of an existing property owner, is that property owner going out and procuring the services of an architect and spending 40k on a U-Butte set of plans for an apartment block that may not actually have any value in that location or may not be feasibly supported in that location. So really, whether through acquisition or actually development of an existing property, it's following due process. You know yourself the importance of following the right process when it comes to, say, structuring a business or setting up a business. It's no different when we talk about property. You've really got to know who you should be talking to, which are the experts that you need to be bringing in at the right times to make sure that advice all funnels through to a solid end outcome that's built around a quality plan versus, say, like I said, jumping ahead to a later stage that may not necessarily be relevant or important before you've first understood, okay, in this location, what is it the market wants?
Yep.
What's the highest and best use for our site? That's going to then flow through to a feasible end outcome that can be well supported.
And especially, I guess, then when it comes down to, a business that is a going concern and is operating day to day, it's that stuff that we need to make sure there is a plan so that, the main part of the business doesn't get too interrupted.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess what's often forgotten about with property is it's a long-term play. Ultimately we're in this for the long term and that's where we'll see the best results. So it doesn't necessarily need to be looked at as hey, we're going to come up with a strategy to, say, relocate to a more cost-effective base and a more cost-effective location and release some of the value that's in the existing location through, like we spoke about earlier, that new higher and better use. That sort of planning could take a couple of years to come off. So recognise, I guess, most of all that it can be a slow process. We need to have some patience there, but in tackling it the right way and in actually taking the time to do it the right way, that's where we're going to get the best results from a property point of view, but also from the point of view of minimising disruption to the day-to-day operation of the business.
Yeah, good. I think I like your reference there to highest and best use. Like, I've put a focus more on if a business owner's looking to acquire property, for instance, but sometimes it's sitting there, well, because of these things like gentrification or reuse or whatever it may be in the trends, actually realising an asset and relocating a business too.
Oh, absolutely, and I think it's easy to be comfortable with where you are, and we certainly recognise some of the challenges that come around relocation of an established business. But when you look at the numbers, it tells a very different story to what you may be seeing as some of the hurdles that you need to get through before you realise that.
Very good. Bit of a sidetrack here, and picking on a bit of a niche I know you're involved in, a bit of hit with the oldies, yeah? So, from an aged care point of view or a retiree point of view, and we've spoken about this before, I think for viewers, I don't know if people realise it's about, it's estimated up to, I guess, 80% of small business owners are actually in that baby boomer cohort. Mm-hmm. So, a big wave of people will go into that ageing population. We've got, different needs, a real swell or an increase in certain services are going to be required. Tell me a bit about that space, how you play there.
Yeah, sure. Look, the retirement living and aged care market is something that I sort of fell into rather organically. At the time, I'd just delivered a major apartment project for an employer, and they were looking to bring some fresh blood into their retirement and aged care business. So I guess the exposure I had through that experience and the exposure since has been really, looking at how that industry is evolving. It's changing dramatically. What we're seeing most of all is that there are a change in expectations from the consumer, as in to say from whether they're a retiree looking for a independent villa to downsize to, or whether they're a frail aged person that needs a level of care. The expectations of generations past, the interwar, the builder generations, are very, very different from that of the current cohort and the boomers coming through. So I guess holistically what we're seeing is a desire to be more connected. So these villages, these aged care facilities, no longer is the fringe of town an acceptable location to deliver.
And be right in the middle of it.
Absolutely. If we look at the healthiest ways to age, the healthiest ways to grow old is to remain connected with the community. So the opportunities in that space, back to your question, Beats, really flow from, one, from a property point of view, being able to open up land opportunity for new facilities, new villages in interconnected locations, existing urban areas that already have the infrastructure, that are already close to the existing community that these people have known and loved for all their lives. From the point of view of, I guess, the service element to it, we're seeing new things open up every day. Like I said, the level of acceptance of service from generations past has changed. We're seeing evolving aged care models. I think you're aware of a particular model out of Sydney where they're actually going up and buying residential properties, creating effectively group homes, and allowing people to genuinely age within a community as distinct from that institutional environment that we're all familiar with when the word nursing home,
which is extremely other end. Well, not the other end, but it's very different to the traditional way we've seen things.
It is, and that just comes down to people that's just no longer tolerating that as an acceptable outcome. They want something better. It's effectively a very important time in people's lives. So keeping them connected, delivering quality of service, and helping them age in a location that they're really happy to age in. Evidence of that being the growth in home care services. It's a booming market because people age people want to age where they've lived most of their life.
So with that being the case, then pretty much all around the community there's a lot of opportunity for business owners within that ageing space. What would be some advice, or what should they be looking at to take advantage of that?
Yeah, look, I think it's probably dangerous, and there's so much opportunity out there. So obviously, coming back to playing to your strengths as a service provider, as a business owner, whatever that may be. Ultimately, it becomes a question for the consumer of how do you deliver them with greater choice in terms of things that they're already accessing. So at the moment, what we've got is a limited pool of care providers. we've got a limited pool of service providers, we've got a limited range of options when it comes to retirement living. So really identifying what are the real negatives associated with the existing product. How do we take that and make something better out of it? The group homes in Sydney is a perfect example of aged care, but in the context of a residential setting, which makes people feel more comfortable, is more inviting for families who want to come and visit relatives. So taking an existing offer and improving upon it based on the common bugbears, the common complaints, the common issues for the person who's effectively paying for the service.
But I guess it's from a summary point of view, it's definitely a demographic that can't be ignored, and for years to come it will be a decent opportunity. It
is for sure, Baz. I think the growth in the numbers there. You mentioned the wave that's coming. It's astronomical. You've only got to look at a couple of statistics there, and proportionally, the over 65s market will make up a huge number of the Australian population. So, these people have got a high level of wealth owing to years and years of hard work. Typically, they're sitting on property assets that are very valuable now, thankfully for them, and they'll be going through a process of divestment of businesses, properties, and all sorts of things, and they want a quality of life that's unlike those before them. So, as you say, the population's there, the new expectations are there, and the opportunities there to deliver services that they really want and desire. Yeah,
good. So I guess bring this all together from a general property point of view, saying, look, it's not necessarily the wrong answer or the right answer whether you're a business owner operates or holds property. It's what's right for them. I guess give yourself time and make sure you've got advice from people planning before the doing. So I mean, from the point of view of that vested interest piece, really got to look at the opportunity that's in the aging demographic and how people can maximise that. And as much as we like to think we're all experts, sometimes it can help us within our strategy to get a better outcome by using people such as yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think the real value that we get is seeing people that make smart decisions based on having stopped and thought about the implications of what it is they're about to do. And oftentimes that may be something as simple as moving step 3 back to step 1 based on circumstance. It may be as simple as getting the structure right in terms of when they're going to purchase an asset. It can be really simple things that can have enormous flow-on impacts for the good and the bad. So I guess the real message there is just stop and ask the questions. If you're unsure of something and uncertain of something, and perhaps you're even unable to move forward based on a feeling of fear or risk, ask questions of the people that you know and trust.
Yeah, good advice. So that wasn't that hard, was it? Hey? So thanks, Tom, for joining me again, and hopefully you got some value out of this property look into quite an opportunistic industry. So till next time.